Om Lokaha Samastaha Suki no Bhavantu. May all beings be happy and peaceful. Happy Monday. Happy Martin Luther King Jr. Day. It's a bank holiday. It's supposed to be pretty quiet in the markets today, but it's not very quiet right now. Uh, kind of interesting timing again. It looks like maybe another breakout, but I'm going to call this a false breakout. Of course, a little premature to give the call, but I'm going to give some reasoning why I don't think it's going to break out from here. If it does, then I'm very suspicious that this uptrend is going to come to an end sooner than later. I'll put it that way. So if you're curious about C3, if you haven't yet joined, you can join signing up with MEXC, or you can purchase any of my courses or spreadsheets or reports. Now would be a really good time to check out the small cap superstars, because as I'm going to discuss today, I've been mentioning that we are most likely in accumulation. I'm giving it a higher probability right now. And so that means that a lot of these small caps that I mentioned in this report, it's going to be a good time to start buying spot. Now, I know that very few of you are actually going to be paying attention or following my advice on this, and that's fine, but I can at least say I told you so in another year and a half, when these really do 50 or 100x. So, and I'm not saying all of them will, but I'm sure that some of them will. So I have high conviction in these plays, and I will personally be investing in them. So definitely worth checking that out. Let's dive into the charts and see what's going on. This has been pretty outrageous, to be honest. I don't know about you guys, but I mean, look at this. Does this look healthy? No, it's not. It's not healthy at all. And it's not showing me that there's going to be a sustained uptrend here. If we need a pullback, if there's no pullback, then it's just going to go all the way up and then get crushed all the way back down again. That's what I'm more concerned about. It's actually a more difficult environment to be trading in. This is just Ethereum. It looked to be forming maybe a evening star pattern here. This was a doji yesterday. The first kind of slowdown signal for Ethereum. Same with Bitcoin, very similar pattern. But now it's wanting to push even higher. Now, Bitcoin is in a supply zone. I don't have any levels up right now, but Bitcoin is just clearing this supply zone. So it might be that it wicks above it, runs the stops here, and then really pulls back strong. If not, then I'm at a complete loss. The technical analysis is out the window, because yeah, this is a pretty irrational pump, and it's definitely market manipulation. This is definitely not retail. This is definitely not retail. So all the more reason to be suspicious here. So I would definitely not be longing this. Just my own personal 2 cents on this. I took some shorts, some scalp shorts, had made some profits. Now I have another short on Ethereum that's underwater currently, but we'll see what happens with that. I don't think I'm going to get stopped out on that one. So could somebody comment in the chat, make sure that it's functioning properly for me? Just say hi, what's up, so I know that people are actually watching this. Otherwise, I start to kind of go a little crazy, think I'm just talking to myself. So let's pull up the levels and see levels 2023 for Bitcoin. We'll start with Bitcoin. Actually, let's start with the Dixie, because the Dixie looks like, the dollar index looks like it wants to, it's actually up today right now, but it may come all the way back down to 100, 99, 100, which is this key weekly level here, which you can see if I zoom out. Very obvious level of support here. I think it's going to find support somewhere between 100 and 102, as I mentioned. And the reason that this is really important right now is because, well, obviously when this really actually does form some support and then breaks above, then we know that the rest of the markets are going to start to really tumble from there. But then also even more significant is when the dollar index actually comes up stronger and puts in a lower high up here somewhere, ideally, right? Somewhere in between here. And it puts in a lower high, because at this level, this would be where, when it starts to break down, this would be where accumulation of cryptocurrency would I mean, in my best guess is this would be an ideal time to begin accumulating in earnest with cryptocurrency. So that's something to be paying very close attention to in the coming months. And that's something that most crypto investors have no clue about. Obviously, when the dollar index is strong, you don't want to be buying crypto. But when it's at its peak and it's starting to come down, that's when crypto is going to be at its lowest. So if that makes sense. Now, we just have the futures to go off of today. Stocks are closed. I don't know what the hell, why Bitcoin and Ethereum are doing anything right now, but stocks are closed. So again, it's a good reason to be suspicious of this kind of semi pump right now. I don't know that it's going to break out above these levels, but this here is, we're down. It's about, what is it? Where are we? It's down a little bit today, but there's really no sign of a pullback yet. But I wouldn't be surprised to see one tomorrow. I wouldn't be surprised to see it come down, back down to here and retest. And then maybe from there, it makes one more push up, back up to, and it might even come higher to this level here. This is that key mid level, and then all the way up to this monthly level. And that's going to give Bitcoin, Ethereum room to run a lot higher. But if this pulls back as I would expect it to, then Ethereum and Bitcoin are absolutely going to pull back. We just have to figure out, okay, how much? Is it going to be a shallow pullback, or is it going to be much deeper pullback? Yeah, this is outrageous. This is what you'd see in a very strong, irrational bull market. And this is not retail. Retail's not doing this. So I don't know what the aim is here, how high they want to run this, but we are at a critical level. We're getting close to, this is actually, is that a quarterly level for Bitcoin or a monthly level? Yep, it's a monthly level for Bitcoin. So if they do run it up, it hasn't hit it yet. So it's possible that there's a run up straight up to 21.5, 21.6. And in which case I'd say if this continues from here and it continues to go and clear this level and run all these stops, then I would be extremely wary of the pullback scenario. I would actually be more aligned with the idea that it just completely round trips and comes all the way back down again, slowly but surely. And that's obviously not pleasant, but that's something that we have to entertain, that scenario, because when you see something that, again, it's just not healthy in so many ways. So let's look at pullback scenarios and see where we could get long. I went through this in the C3 group yesterday for a bunch of altcoins. I'm going to go over a lot of altcoins today, and we'll look at Bitcoin to start. So where would be a healthy pullback? Where would be a shallow pullback? Where would be a healthy pullback for Bitcoin? A healthy pullback to me would be coming down to 18.5 minimum, and then starting to consolidate and then starting to push back up. And this is the bottom of that bigger range that I mentioned, where this was the deviation. So the retest of this much larger range between 25,210 and 18,600 would make complete perfect sense to me in a healthy trending market. But that's a long way to fall from where it sits right now. And so we have to entertain the shallow pullback possibility that it only comes down to maybe it only comes down to 20K, and maybe it comes down to the mid here, 19,500, and then starts to show some strength to the upside. But any sort of a pullback, given that we see it's probably going to happen fast and furious, as I've mentioned, just given the trajectory that we've seen so far. But then we need a pattern to develop, and we need to see it break above that pattern and continue to show strength. And those would be long triggers. So we have a long trigger here and here for Bitcoin. I'm not shorting Bitcoin right now because I have an ETH short that's open. I think that ETH is probably going to come down further than Bitcoin, because it's been even more irrational than Bitcoin. So let's look at Ethereum now and see where Ethereum should reasonably come down to. And I don't know about you all, but this bear market's really been wearing me out as far as just this endless chop. And it's not really very easy to trade. It's definitely not, even for those of us that have been trading for many, many years, this is difficult to trade. And that's all there is to it. Like I've had, more fun trading stocks, did a little bit of Forex, but it's, it's just these types of movements. It's kind of like being on that roller coaster after eating a bunch of fried food. And the roller coaster is just literally going, it's going up, it's going down, and there's nothing really in between. I mean, we had this, but then, it's just now it's probably going to do something like that again. So not fun to trade, but if you can catch the moves, good on you. I've managed to make some money here. I haven't been as profitable as I usually am in a trending market. It is easier for most traders to trade when it's trending. And obviously when it's trending up, you can make a lot of money when it's trending down. But most traders do better when it's trending up because they prefer the long scenarios. And also that's when retail is really buying in earnest. And so it's not just market makers that you're up against, if that makes sense. So for a lot of traders, I would say, and not financial advice, but if I could have went back to my early days, I would just say, I'm just going to sit this out and I'm going to watch and see how they operate at these levels and see what happens, and look at the wicks and look at the patterns that form, and try to identify my levels and what's going on there. Because that's really where you're going to learn the most. And if you can trade this, you can trade anything. So that's the truth. If you can trade Ethereum under these conditions, then you can absolutely trade anything. Ethereum could push higher. It could, obviously, markets can stay irrational longer than we can be solvent. And so obviously you don't ever want to bet the farm, and especially when it's counter trend. It's a counter trend trade. So in this case, we have, my short position is a lot smaller than a typical long position would be. And so it takes, so I'm more cautious, and I'm also quicker to take profits. If I see a sign that, like earlier today, I had a short and it was doing quite well, but then these wicks gave me a sign that I needed to get out of the trade. And so I did. I got out of the trade. I locked in some profits. I just made the mistake. Well, it wasn't a mistake, but I got back in the trade here, and we'll see what comes of this. But this is, from here, this kind of starting to look like some devil's horns. If it does come back down to this range, then this could be the sign. It would have been I would have felt a little better about this if it actually wicked above this previous wick here, and it was a faster movement, a quicker rejection and a longer wick. But that we're not seeing that. So there is this momentum that it has going for it. So it could go either way right now. But if I were looking to trade this, and let's say I was looking for long scenarios for Ethereum, I'm looking for the pullback. How deep is the pullback going to be? I would expect it to come down to 1425, which is the bottom here. You see this SR, this support zone here, and this is the range. So between 2022 and 1425, this was the larger range. This was the deviation. We're back inside now, and now a retest makes sense, forms a pattern, breaks back above. There's your long trigger, targeting maybe a conservative target back up here around 1600. Second target, you could hit this quarterly level 1680, and then you're looking at 1796. And then if you're really shooting for the moon, all the way up to 2000. I don't know if Ethereum's going to make it back up there. We'll see. But if Bitcoin goes all the way back up to 25K, which it could, if it does that, then Ethereum will definitely go close to 2000. So this is the main setup that I'd be looking for here. But any sort of a pullback, really, where it starts to settle down, if you really zoom into this and you look on the 1H and you see, are there any other patterns that we can identify here? There's a little bit of a demand zone here, and this is around between 1450 and 1460. And so if it comes down even to there, it really gets a decent size correction here. anything around this level between 1425 and 1460, I'd be looking to maybe get long if it starts to consolidate and show continued strength here. But if we see massive red candles like we saw here with these green candles in the opposite direction, that's not a good sign either. And that's a sign that it wants to head much further south from there. So there's no way to know for sure whether it's going to be a deep or shallow pullback or it's going to completely round trip, but you have to be prepared for every scenario. And that's why I said, if you're newer to trading, sit it out, man, because this is for, it's very easy to lose money in this type of a market. This is the most difficult market to trade. And of course, it's not always fun because especially new traders, they want to always be in a trade. I understand that. Throw a couple dollars into Solana, do 100x and see what happens. Like that's the best advice that I can give on this, because it's still fun. You get to watch your P&L, you get to watch your P&L go up and down, and you get some experience with the trade. Throw $1 into the trade if you're not sure and just see what happens with it. And that way you still have some skin in the game, or maybe even $10, whatever, $20, whatever you have that. But Solana right here, would I long this? No, this is no, absolutely not. I definitely would not long Solana here. I would short Solana here, but I'm not getting a short trigger here. But if we're breaking it down, if we're looking on the 15-minute time frame, we're looking for it to break down. Maybe you use your diagonal trends. Maybe you're looking at something like this and it starts to break down on the 5-minute, and then we get breakdown, retest, then there's your short trigger. Okay. Otherwise you want to be conservative, take a conservative entry. You could maybe identify this as the range low and wait till it breaks down here with some strength, maybe comes back to retest from there. If you're wanting to be more aggressive, but this isn't at a critical level, it's kind of, I think it's hanging out in midair right now. Yeah. So, I mean, this is not a zone where I'm not really looking to play the game here. I'm not really looking to take trades here. A little bit higher. This is an obvious supply zone here for Solana. And did it come up? Did it come up there? No, not yet. So it's kind of midair right now, but I think it's going to pull back. It looks like it wants to pull back, doesn't it? When you see a pattern, you see all this consolidation after a big strong move up in a bear market, that doesn't mean that it's going to continue forever. Of course, you never know with cryptocurrency. You have to be prepared for any scenario, but I would say more likely it's going to pull back. And when it does, where would I be looking to maybe get long on Solana? I'm just going to tell you straight off the bat, I wouldn't long Solana, but I would be looking to maybe get long if it came to 1850 and then cleared above here. Okay. Oh, you know what it is? Oh, that's so funny. I couldn't see the chat because that's why. Okay. It makes me scroll up to see the comments on the chat. Okay. It's a little bit concerning to me. I'm sorry, guys. Hi, Shizzy and Peter and Ben and Dejan and Federico and Adam. Hi, Manu. Yeah, so I'm not really interested in this, where I would be more interested in a short, but I'm not going to be aggressive with shorts in this type of a market. Ethereum is starting to come down a little bit from here right now, but we'll see what happens. It may be that we get that rejection for Ethereum during this live stream, and there's definitely going to be some aggressive shorts coming in here, it looks like. So Solana, if it comes to 1850, this is previous resistance. It broke above. Now it's going to come back down and probably test it as support. But then you could wait and see if it goes even lower than that. But I think that if Solana goes any lower than this, then this trend is obviously coming to an end. So we're kind of in between phases. It's like, is it a trending market? Is it a range bound market? I would still err on the side of caution and say we're in a range bound market. And so that means that you can't, a lot of the strategies that I talk about in my courses, the EMA bounce strategy, the pin bar strategies, like those don't apply in this type of environment. Until we see like sustained momentum to the upside over not just days, but maybe many weeks. And that's a real uptrend. So always be suspicious of rallies in a larger downtrend in a bear market. Now, Atom has already pulled back somewhat to this level here. I marked this yesterday, 1233. But Atom, I also think, is probably wants to come down a lot, wants to come down lower. I think if it came down to 1133 and it starts to consolidate here and we get a pattern and it breaks back above this level here, then I'd be looking to take a long on Atom back up to this level here. First take profit, maybe. And yeah, look, you can see right here, this is a supply zone for Atom. It did hit this. It did penetrate this and was rejected initially. So I'd have take profits here, and then I'd be looking to see if it can push up. I'd keep some rolling here into this zone here. It's about 1456. So Litecoin has been relatively weak in the last like 4 or 5 days. I've noticed it because I've been watching it alongside other altcoins. I don't know that it really has a whole lot of room to run up. If it does run higher, where would Litecoin go? The thing about Litecoin is you never really know. Sometimes we get those scam pumps, and they're especially the case with Litecoin. So you never know for sure. It's been weaker the last 4 or 5 days, but there was a strong rejection here at this key level. And so, but I still want to see it come back down. I'm not comfortable longing this here because we have this level here at around $93, and you can see it very clearly. This is an obvious resistance. This whole zone here between 93.37 and 106.44. If the rest of the market pulls back, then I think that Litecoin is probably going to pull back down at minimum to about 80, 81, this weekly level here. And then if it clears that, then there's your long trigger. And then you're looking to target conservative targets back up at this high here around $90. But then we're looking at 93.80, and then all the way up to 106.45. That wouldn't surprise me actually to see that with Litecoin. So I am still keeping a close eye on this. I'm not long or short. I'm just watching it carefully. I haven't really looked at ADA I thought it was going to break down here, but then this was obviously a breakout build up, and it broke out again. I'm not really interested in trading ADA. I don't like it when they get more. I mean, it's cleaner than some of the other charts, but this level is clear resistance. Is it going to push higher? If it does, then I'd be looking to target maybe up here. This is 0.379, but also needs to pull back. And I would expect it to come down, maybe deviate back inside here, this little range here, and then get above, and then we break above here. So this is around 0.332. And then so initial targets, you could have a target up at 0.368 and then 0.379, and then we're looking to, but see, it's the same pattern. All the alts, we're looking for the same sort of pullback scenario here. Otherwise, like I said, if it just keeps going, that's not a good sign. That's not a sign that, I mean, of course it could just keep going forever. We never really know for sure. But if it keeps going all the way up into this zone here, and then it starts to show some weakness, that's definitely a massive short trigger for me. If it gets all the way up to 0.378. So if we see this move and it gets even more overextended without pulling back, then just watch that closely and watch the FOMO, keep it in check. Don't try to jump on this. We're already pretty late into this move. And the fact that we're seeing this price action on a Monday when the stocks are closed is even more reason for suspicion. So it could mean that maybe we get one last push up here, and then we get a deep pullback starting tomorrow morning, because the Dixie's coming back right now. ES is down right now. So that could be the scenario that we're going to see here come play out in the next 12 to 18 hours or so. Almost every YouTuber is bullish right now. What YouTubers are you watching? I saw something from Guy from Coin Bureau. He was saying that 17K was going to be strong resistance. He was bearish at 17K and I was bullish. So now I'm kind of leaning the other direction. I'm not, I don't want to say I'm macro bearish, but short term still bullish until signs prove otherwise. It's just that I am hopeful that we get that pullback, because I think that if, in the case of Bitcoin, I think that if it does pull back to where we want it to, this 18,500 or maybe even a little bit lower, and then clears back up above again, then in that case, I would really not rule out the possibility of an extended rally that brings us all the way back up to the top of this range or close to it. Between 20, this would be the sweet spot for Bitcoin. Between 24,328 and 25,279. This would be an incredible run here, but it would also give a lot more strength to the accumulation argument. So we want the pullback for the health of this market. We want the pullback because the pullback is going to give room for it to run even higher, if that makes sense. If we don't get that, then it's most likely going to maybe come up here, maybe up here, and then start to really crush down fast. So let's see, what other alts haven't we looked at yet? I will take a look at BNB. Now, okay. This actually looks somewhat clean. Again, I wouldn't long this. It's suicide, in my humble opinion. I wouldn't short this either. I want to sit back and wait and see. But it would be nice if BNB came back at least to 278.4. But then it could also come, if it came down here to back down to 258, 259, and then we get a clearance there, then that would be a long trigger. So either of these cases could be long triggers, but we're looking at ultimately targeting this weekly level at 337.4. And of course, you can hit these zones along the way, these previous resistance spikes here. But 337.4, between 337.4 and 208, you can see that's the major range that we're playing with BNB right now. And it is above the mid. So there's a good chance, I would think, that as long as the rest of the market stays strong, I would think there's a good chance that it comes back up to this 337.6 level at minimum. And it might deviate above again, like what we saw here. Maybe we get another deviation back inside, and there's a short trigger to bring it all the way back down again. That wouldn't surprise me. And that also is in alignment with Bitcoin. BNB is very closely following the accumulation pattern of Bitcoin. If it's not exact, right? But this is this looks like an accumulation pattern. It looks like the early days of accumulation. Now we don't have a whole lot of time. If we're just on the 3-day here, it's not like several months, but how long is this right now that we've been in this range bound environment here? I mean, this could be, it's 84. Is that right? 251 days? 3 days. Wow, yeah, okay. So about 250 days BNB has been in this accumulation. So that would give it even more strength. If it comes back up and then comes back down again, we get another secondary test down here. BNB looks to be an accumulation. Let's see about MATIC too, because MATIC, you could call this an accumulation. The only thing about MATIC is that it hasn't come back all the way back down here. It's actually been a lot stronger than every other alt out there, with some exceptions with some of the smaller caps that are just, out of control. But MATIC, this could be accumulation for MATIC as well. and anything between, I mean, if it actually can get back below 71, then that would be, this is one that, it's not a small cap superstar for me, but it is one that I would say as a mid cap, mid to large cap, it's definitely up there on my list to be accumulated for the next bull run. I think MATIC will continue to outperform many other alts and is going to surprise a lot of people. It's needed. But MATIC here is up at the top of this range here right now, and we see some rejection wicks. That's on the 3-day, of course, but if we look on the daily, that doesn't look very stable. It looks like a little bit of a seesaw there. And you see, I shorted it up here down to here, had some profits here, but I definitely wouldn't long this. I think that it's probably going to come down. It looks like it wants to come down, and definitely at minimum, it should come down to 0.95 with a proper pullback. And that's retesting the bottom, the top of this range here, previous resistance, and flipping it into support. So, but I probably wouldn't long this here either. I'm kind of taking a break from MATIC. It's not, I don't like this. I don't like what happened here. That throws off the rest of the chart for me. If we could have erased this, then I would feel more comfortable trading MATIC. I don't know if that makes sense to you, but that's just, I like cleaner charts. So, but if it does come back down to 0.95, then that could give a long trigger. It has definitely been stronger than many of the other alts. It's up 3.5% today. I mean, that's pretty good. So yeah, Solana keeps going, still trying to push up. I mean, I don't know how many rejections it needs up here. These wicks are very daunting to me. But AVAX is looking like it wants to come down too. I mean, AVAX we had that Amazon announcement, which, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, okay. I mean, I guess it's meaningful, but I don't focus on the fundamentals so much. But we had a strong pump with AVAX. I would be very cautious longing AVAX here. I would not be longing AVAX here. I would be waiting to see if it comes back down to this weekly level. This is 1531. And you could see, let's look at this on the 4H and see. So again, notice the pattern. They're all the same. They're all the same, just slightly different variations on the same theme. Here was a larger range. It's back inside the larger range after deviating below. Very likely wants to push up higher, but a pullback here at minimum to 1536. Maybe it deviates below here and then gets back above. That would be your long trigger. And then, I mean, the sky's the limit. It could come all the way up to 1980. And then you've got your mid-level here around 2217, and then all the way, potentially, could come all the way back up to $28. I told people on Twitter months ago that AVAX was going to $10 when it was $20, and they thought that I was crazy. Well, guess what? It came all the way down to 1060. So there's something to TA for those of you that are paying attention. You know, it's not just a bunch of woo-woo. So what else? Any other requests? Any charts that I've missed so far that you want me to cover that you're looking at? No, I don't. I'm not long any of the small caps yet. I haven't thrown any spot into any of the small caps, but I will be. I'll be exploring that in the C3 when I do start investing spot in small caps from that report. Although there's definitely some of them have actually gone up 20% in a day. I haven't looked at them in the last couple of days, but some of them were really shooting up very quickly during this rally. And obviously that's to be expected because some of them have a market cap between 50 and $100 million. And so they're going to move a lot quicker. But I need to see accumulation for Bitcoin. I need to see more of a grounded, balanced price action over several months. before I feel comfortable starting to throw money into those higher risk altcoins. Yeah, so I mean, a secondary test, it would actually be the second secondary test, might even be a spring, and many people don't realize that a spring actually goes lower than the selling capitulation level. So that would be maybe down somewhere beneath 15K for Bitcoin. But we'll see. It might never go back. It doesn't have to play out any certain way. Just that Wyckoff to me has been one of the more reliable indicators that if you only study one aspect of technical analysis, well, obviously price action is really important, but the Wyckoff theory has not been wrong yet. I'll put it that way. And so Wyckoff theory for me, I've studied a lot of the different theories out there, and I've done the Fibonacci's. I've looked at it's not coming to me right now. All these Elliott waves, all these patterns here. I've tried all of that, and it's just not really good with, if you can spot accumulation and distribution, then you're golden. And everything, I mean, obviously that's not all there is to it, but that's a big part of investing. It's maybe not all there is to trading, but it's a huge part of investing. So study that. And I mentioned I do explore that in Smart Money's Crypto Handbook and the technical analysis section, but there's some great resources out there on Elliott wave, or sorry, not Elliott wave. Don't study that. Doesn't matter. On the Wyckoff accumulation distribution, and these schematics I just pulled them off of. I'm on Bitcoin now. So Bitcoin is actually looks like it's hitting some resistance right now, but this image here, just type in where is it? Why is it not showing up? Yeah, so just type this into Google, and there's actually an article that goes along with this, and it explains every single one of these in great detail. And I've done this in previous videos as well, but this is really important to know, to understand. Like, again, few people are paying attention to this. Few people care about this. They're like, well, it's a bunch of squiggly lines. It never plays out the same way twice. That's true. But a lot of the times, there's a couple of these schematics. A lot of the times it falls very close to one or the other. So where would we be here? We would be most likely up somewhere up here, right? And then it may come up and push up a little bit higher, even deviate above that 25K range, and then come all the way back down. And then we get another secondary test, and maybe we get another spring here. But you can see there's two secondary tests and a spring in this case. So usually 2 to 3 or more pushes back down again. So I would not be wanting to purchase spot with a lot of those small cap gems in this sort of environment. I'd be hoping to get in maybe on the final spring, or somewhere later in the distribution, or sorry, the accumulation. And how do we know that it's later in the accumulation? Well, it's very obvious that when we see the weekly EMAs, this is the 12 and the 21, when we see these start to lose their slope and start to cross, and this starts to this continues, and we see this sort of price action, and we see it really settle down, that's when we know that we're in the advanced stages of accumulation. If that's all you know how to do, is spot accumulation and distribution, well, guess what? You just learned how to buy and sell cryptocurrency. I mean, there's so much toxic ideology in cryptocurrency, especially the idea, the HODL culture, and like how they shame you. I've experienced this in different projects, and where they shame you for selling, and it's like, well, even I've fallen victim to it at times, and it's not the way, because if that was the way, then where would we be for those of us, and I hope none of you are on the stream right now, but if you bought December 11th, 2017. Well, what was the price? It was 19,789. And for the last, how long now? Has it been like 5 years? We'd be completely, that's 1,862 days, where most of that time, well, not most of that time, but you're back where you, almost back where you started right now. And for some of this time, you were actually underwater. After 3 years, it finally broke above. I have friends that have had Bitcoin that have been, and some of them actually, they've gotten a lot lower, but even still, if you really work this out and you figure out, okay, what's the ideal way to be? It's to buy the bottom or close to it and sell the top or close to it. And the only way to really ensure that you can do that is to A, take profits along the way, and B, understand the Wyckoff accumulation and distribution schematics, because that, I mean, this would have saved so much trouble for so many investors. Like right here, I'm always talking about this because I know that this is really, like, if you want to understand if you want to really become a multimillionaire as an investor, as a crypto investor, this is the most important thing for you to understand. Like, these small movements that are happening right now, it's great. You can make a lot of money trading, but you can make a lot more money in the long term buying and selling at the right times and holding at the right times. The right time to hold is here. The right time to hold is from this level all the way up to here. Sell, 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 sell. Distribution, okay? And then this is not the right time to hold, okay? Back all the way back down. That was, of course, a little bit of we had a breakdown, a markdown phase here, and then another accumulation here. But then most people got back in somewhere up here thinking it was going to go higher. But really, what was this? I mean, this was a deviation from beyond this range here. Let's just say that this was the range. This was your deviation back inside. This was your short trigger. So having a little bit of trading knowledge, a little bit of understanding of the Wyckoff, and having a little bit of courage, growing some balls, and knowing, just being able to follow through on your plans to execute, like, it's going to make all the difference in the next bull run. So, okay, a lot of comments just came in now. So the comments have been a little bit sporadic. I'm not getting them right away. Yeah, Aptos is a good one. Aptos is a good one. Gala. Okay, I'll look at Aptos. I don't want to look at Gala. I'll look at it quickly. 1603 on the 5-minute. I'm not sure what you're talking about. Yeah, I think Ethereum's going to come down. I think it's going to come down hard, and I think Bitcoin's going to do the same. That's why I'm still in my short position here. And if you look at this, this could be again, this is why it's helpful to understand Wyckoff, because that you can apply the Wyckoff methodology to any time frame. So, like, let's just say that here we're going to ignore this wick, but let's just say that this is the range that we're working with. Okay, so this would be your up thrust, your first up thrust. Here would be a second up thrust, and usually those up thrusts, they spring beyond and run the stops. And then if it gets back inside, then most likely, let's just say that Ethereum, it comes back down inside here, 1563, back below 1560, most likely coming back down at minimum to the bottom of this range. And so this is where it can be really helpful if you're a scalper, and let's just say that you enter a short upon confirmation, gets back inside the range, clean break below this level here, 1564. And then maybe you have one take profit level. Maybe you have a couple take profits, maybe somewhere in the mid, somewhere down here. But then also you always leave some just in case, because that could very likely mean that it's going to come down. And then we see it start to consolidate here. Okay. And then it would have kind of a similar pattern, maybe accumulation, but this is a distribution, a potential distribution pattern. But it could also just break out, you know, but initially the initial reaction here, yeah, as you mentioned, like I don't, you know, I would have wanted to see a longer wick. So ideally the candle was only like half this size and the wick was maybe double the size, but it is what it is. It could still come down from there. So let's look at Aptos. And I think I have that on. I am curious about what Aptos has been doing. I don't have a lot to go off of here for Aptos, but it's always frustrating because you see that one wick in the corner is throwing off the rest of my chart. I can't really see a whole lot. Okay. I wouldn't long Aptos here. I would be, I definitely believe that Aptos is going to come up strong at some point. I'll put it that way, but I wouldn't long it here because even from a daily perspective, this is obvious resistance here. This is going to be an obvious resistance level for Aptos at 818. But it may range. Maybe it comes back down and we get, this looks like, yep. So notice how the price is fractal here. This we have a range here. I wouldn't really call this a supply zone because the price was here for quite a while, but we have a range here, and then we also have it looks like it could be, this could be a range that's trying to develop here. So I wouldn't short this, I wouldn't long this, but I wouldn't be surprised if Aptos came back down again. We always have to look to Bitcoin first. Bitcoin and Ethereum come first, and then the rest follow that. And so always be cautious when you've seen Bitcoin and Ethereum make big, strong moves in one direction. It, you know, alts, if let's just say, I mean, it could be that Ethereum and Bitcoin really just consolidate here, don't go anywhere, and that could give alts room to run higher, but the alts have already made a big move up, right? So you think about sustainability and the reversion back to the mean. That's sort of the main principle here, is like there always is a reversion back to the mean at some point. We don't know when. We try to time it, but the higher probability, that's what we're trying to play as traders. You're trying to figure out what is the higher probability. The higher probability after 119% move up is what? It's a deeper pullback. And some would say, well, we did get a pullback. It pulled back to here and then pushed higher. But notice what happened here. It didn't push up as strong as the move from here, okay? So the distance between here to here is not as much. So if I were to pull up the RSI, I bet you it would show, and you can go ahead and do it, it's going to show a decrease in momentum, right? And so maybe it pushes up a little bit higher and we get a triple tap here. What's a triple tap? It's just there's a series of 3 higher highs, but the third high, the 1, 2, 3, but they're close together. They're not much higher than the previous high. That's a sign of decreasing momentum, which is a sign of most likely a deeper pullback to come. So, well, I think it already looks like it wants to pull back just by gauging by these 4H wicks. Always helps to look on different time frames and see what you see, because you're going to see different things on different time frames. On the hourly, you can see this is putting in, it looks like there's some strong resistance here right now. And then this previous hourly candle, I would not long this. I might consider shorting this. I probably wouldn't do either right now because of A0 is still a lower market cap. But for those of you that really have a taste for this and you enjoy trading these sorts of things, go for it. But definitely be waiting be conservative and wait for a pullback maybe to $7 range. So hope that's helpful. I'll look at GALA quickly. Let's see what's going on with GALA. Okay, so very strong. It's been very strong. Some erratic movements, just judging by the wicks here. But this is an obvious daily level, which is probably a weekly level as well. And then you could actually identify the range here, this range here. So again, similar sort of pattern. Actually, this was a deviation. I wouldn't long this. I wouldn't long any of these right now. I've mentioned this, but I would. It did pull back. It did pull back, but it would be nice if it came down lower, back down to this level here, this 0.041, 0.04, and then it started to come back up, and then it breaks back above. Once it gets back above again and clears here, then I'd be looking to maybe take a long, and probably to the mid here, which you can knock that out with the fibs, figure that out, and then maybe all the way up to the 0.07 for GALA. But this is not a healthy. I don't like to long these. I wouldn't long this. Even if it did pull back, I wouldn't long it. That's just me. But everyone's different. It's just, I'm used to trading. You know, I came from the stock market, so when I see something like that, I usually kind of shy away from it. And I know there's a lot of money to be made in that, but there's also a lot of money to be lost in some of these. I don't know what the market cap of GALA is right now, but it's probably not, I mean, it's not nearly as high as, say, MATIC. So just be careful with that one. Phantom. Yeah, I think I covered AVAX, didn't I? I covered AVAX. I do think that it could come up, to, I had marked it at, could come all the way to 28. Beyond that, not so sure. It just depends on the rest of the market. So Phantom, let's look at Phantom quickly here. So I covered Phantom the other day, and it did not really pull back the way that I was hoping that it would. It actually pulled into this zone here, the supply zone, and then wicked off of it. But there's some indecision here. This doji. I don't like this chart. I wouldn't trade this chart. Just my 2 cents. I wouldn't trade this. You've got to pick your battles. You've got to pick, you know, you got to look at, like, how clean is this? Like, I like a clean house. I like a clean fridge. I like, you know, I don't like dirty charts. This is a dirty chart. So, and it's not, there's a practical reason for that, right? Because it's not as predictable. When I immediately look at a chart and I can't really make sense of it, well, obviously it's been strongly trending up, but then we saw what happened here. It was strongly trending up and then strongly trending all the way back down even lower. So I don't have high hopes for Phantom. I think that it could push up. Now, I would wait to see if it comes back down to this weekly level here first. But I'm not trading Phantom either to the upside or the downside. That's not my cup of tea. It's good to know. It's good to know, because when I first started trading, I just sort of traded whatever I could. And now I'm like, I'll focus on 2 or 3, maybe 5 at most at a time, where I'm really like clear on, if it hits this level, this is where I'm interested in trading. I'm setting my alerts and so on, so that I keep that mental bandwidth to a minimum. I'm just focused on where I need to be, and then I'll size up on those trades. XO just did a stream the other day where he was talking about, he shared his trading journal. I don't know if any of you follow him, but just knowing where you're going to trade, knowing how much you're going to risk, that's just kind of standard protocol for traders. Like for me, I'll usually risk maybe 1 to 2% per trade maximum. And I usually won't have more than, lately it's been 2 to 3% max that I've been risking overall, but I usually won't risk more than 5% of my trading funds at any given time. And that's so if you take all the trades together. And the way that I ensure that is by using the trading size spreadsheet, which is for sale on my website. It's $49. And that's how I figure out my position sizing based on how much I want to risk on that trade. So the very first thing is I'm going to risk 0.5% on this trade. Here's my stop loss. Okay, here's the size of the trade. Here's the leverage that I'm going to use, all of that. So I don't know how that came up, but it's important to hone your focus and not get too crazy with these alts. The reason that I'm mentioning this right now is because this is when we're seeing the most illiquid conditions in the market. So that means that there's going to be these types of strong moves, and you're going to think, well, game on for Phantom, but really it's just market manipulation, and they're taking advantage of the fact that there's not really a whole lot on the books. And so just be careful. And as the bear market wears on, for me, as it's a general strategy of mine to lean away from the lower cap alts and lean away from the ones that, like, I don't think I've even looked at Dogecoin and Doge is actually a higher cap, right? But actually, yeah, so that's not really a good example. But like even like Phantom and Sushi is one you've got to be really careful with. Although Sushi, I think I said I was going to cover Sushi. Sushi has given some trade setups. It actually looks better to me than Phantom does, even though it has a lower market cap. But you've got to pick your battles, man. Like you've just got it. You can't trade them all. And if you catch even some of the move on some of the alts, that's great. That's more than enough. So it might be that some traders that I know, their strategy is strictly, I'm just going to trade Bitcoin and I'm going to risk 2 to 3 to 5% on a trade. I'm only going to take maybe a few trades a month. And that's just what I know. I like to have a little bit of diversification, but not too much. So not getting too, but I will cover alts if they're requested. So Sushi was requested, has been requested. Sushi is not in a, it looks like it wants to come down, doesn't it? This is a bearish pressure here. When you see these 3 wicks here, there's some bearish pressure, but then you have the rejection here. So we'll see what happens over the next 3 hours for Sushi. But Sushi, if we drop down now, we look at the 4H and we see this looks like maybe sort of a mini distribution. We have a little bit of a range here. It hasn't made it all the way up here yet. So I'd be cautious. I wouldn't be taking any shorts from this position here, but if it did push back up and showed some weakness up here, then I might be looking to short it back down to this mid-level 122 and then all the way down here. But I think that Sushi is most likely going to want to pull back to somewhere down here, and maybe we get a continuation of this range here, and then it breaks back above, and then you've got your targets to the upside, and then maybe even deviates above like it did over here, and maybe continues higher. Because this is a larger range. This was another deviation. So it just depends on the health. That's why I'm paying very close attention to Bitcoin. We need a deeper pullback in order to see a sustained rally across alts. So on the weekly golden ratio for Bitcoin, I don't know. Maybe. I don't follow. I'm not sure how that looks for you, but on the weekly, one thing, I don't know if you all remember this, but I was sharing this a while back, but if we look at 200 on the weekly, Remember when it broke below and I was like warning everyone? I was saying we were like here, right? We broke below and I was saying this is not good. This is a sign of more downside in the weeks and months to come. Well, it came back above, retested, broke down. And I mentioned it here too. This is a sign of more downside in the weeks and months to come. Well, guess what? We're still pretty far below this 200 weekly moving average. This is the first time ever that this has happened for Bitcoin. Look back. I mean, the only other time that we came below, it was a wick below during COVID. And then quickly the next week it came back above again. But previously, if you go all the way back here, you look at how it held as support here, and we're still below it. It just goes to show you that some of these, moving averages, they're not always going to tell you everything that you need to know, but it's giving us a little bit of context. It's giving us some bearish context. We're still below it. But that's why that also could give some credence to the argument that it's going to push back up and maybe test it again. And that's around 24,500. And that also coincides with this level here. So when you have levels that line up with MAs, then that's something to pay attention to. And so that's what I'm looking at more so. I look at moving averages more so than the golden ratio. Yeah, so I think that's it. I mean, I pretty much exhausted the alts. I did Solana. I think I looked at Atom, Litecoin, ADA, BNB, Sushi. Lido, I haven't. Lido's been pulling back since that massive run up. This is another one of those illiquid alts. I mean, look at it. That's not fun to trade. I mean, if you catch one of these moves, great, but they're few and far between, and everything in between is kind of like chop suey. And so I'm just coming in, voice of reason here, guys. It's about making money. It's about making as much money as possible. And that's really all it is. And so you've got to be sensible. And I know that it can be very exciting when you hear about something like this and it's up. I mean, in just this one day alone, what did it do? I don't even know why it did this still, but it went up 86% in a day. That's Lido for you in a bear market. That should be a sign to you. So for me, this is just more for entertainment value. But if I had to guess, if I had to take a gamble here, what would I would say it's coming down. It definitely looks like it wants to at least come back down to 180, 183, 185, which it doesn't look like much, but guess what? That's still a 14% move for Lido. It's down 4% today. And this is actually, what do we see? We see the deceleration, another push up a little bit higher. But even if you try to trade this, it's tricky to trade this unless it's more of a swing position, right? Because let's just set up a short for this from where it is. Look at these wicks. Even if you put the stop here, that's a 16.5% stop loss. So you're looking at less than a 1R if it comes down to here. If you try and put it above this wick, then you're looking at a 29% stop loss. So unless you have confidence that Lido is going to come all the way back down to here, and even in that case, I mean, that's not a attractive trade to me. Right. So I don't know if that's helpful. I haven't looked at ETH BTC, but it's pretty much in this chop zone here. So it's not showing really relative strength or weakness compared to BTC, at least over the last couple of days. So if one comes down, they're both going to probably, move in a similar way, if that makes sense. I mean, liquidity is just like illiquid just means that there's not, it's not really being traded, right? There's not a lot of money in it. If you look at the market cap of an altcoin and it's less than $100 million, that's generally illiquid, right? There's not a lot of capital to buffer when there's a big move. It's easier to move that token or that coin in the spot market when there's not as much money behind it. So a whale can more easily move that price. So it's illiquid. Okay, I'll look at Rune and then I'm going to be done for today. Because I'm still having this cough, man. And I don't know, it's been just nagging me. Like I can't talk for too long because anyways. So yeah, Rune had a nice little run here. All the alts had a nice little run. I think it's coming to an end here. At least that's a level that I would not be longing for Rune. It's all very, very similar. It's remarkably similar. I would actually have marked this level as a weekly level here. So I like to color code my levels so that I know exactly what it is. So this is a weekly level for me, and it's retesting the bottom of this range. I think it will initially reject, but with that said, where would it find support? Where would it likely find support? I mean, if it comes down to 150, and this is a daily level, so my daily levels are more greenish. So if it comes down to 150, that would be great. I don't know if it'll come down that far. It did clear this. Maybe it finds support at around 166. Let's see. Let's just map out some plans here. Maybe it comes all the way down here. This would be, I would entertain a long here. It may do a shallower pullback to this supply zone somewhere in here. So let me just shade that so you can see what I mean here. Okay, it might pull into this supply zone and then it starts to break above, but then I probably wouldn't take a long on this until it cleared back up again and started to really move up from there. So that would be at 178. So you have the 149. This would be a deeper pullback scenario, which really, I mean, realistically, if Ethereum pulls back to like 1425, which I think it should at minimum, if that happens, then it wouldn't be out of the question for Rune to come down. I mean, that is it's a 15% move. But even if it's somewhere in the middle here, it comes down to maybe even below here, I'd feel more comfortable. If it came back down, it doesn't really matter. If you're looking for a long, it could be here. It could be back in here, would be a more conservative long. But then this would have a higher, it could really run here if it gets back in, if it rejects and then gets back inside and then shows some strength, it could really run. And we'd be targeting probably, yeah, and that looks like 242. You could use the fibs here. This is the 0.25 here, which also corresponds to this level here is 208. Okay, 208, 242. And then you've got maybe even 274. You could have 4 take profits if you wanted. If your long trigger was over here. If it was down lower, maybe your first would be down a little bit lower here. So this is the guy that was promoting Wonderland Time. You don't know shit. Welcome to the club. You know, like I've promoted a lot of projects in my days. Like, where have you been the last year? Probably bowed out till it got back to 21K, and now here you are again. And then when it goes to 40K, you'll be like, damn, I should have listened to that Wonderland YouTuber that actually knows what he's talking about. So I'm going to end this stream now, and actually I'm just going to block your ass. Because I don't have time for you people. 𝐬𝐨𝐬𝐬𝐧 can just... Goodbye. Okay, guys, I'm gonna end this stream now, and I'll be back on Wednesday to answer any questions that you have. Thank you all, those of you that tuned in for this stream. And I will see you on Wednesday. I think we're gonna probably have more to talk about on Wednesday. But yeah, expect a pullback. And be careful. Have a beautiful rest of your day.